then it's kind of interesting because you said to save time. Therefore, you created multiple streams of income. However, it's kind of counterintuitive for other folks because they're like, well, you are actually creating new businesses. That's going to intrusively take time from you. So then how do you find the ability to scale between all multiple, streams?
That's a great question.
And getting your time back.
It's because I'm investing the time. So I'm not spending time. I'm investing the time up front.
Yeah.
Then get the value. Does that make sense? Like people, when you say it's counterintuitive, I understand what you're saying, because like you would think adding a stream, like, oh my, that's going to take a bunch of more time. Well, if you look at that time as an investment into that stream that's going to continue to flow if you set up your systems and processes the right way, now you start looking at you got to start looking at your time differently. Like as I'm going to invest my time and do things that I'm not going to be directly compensated for, with the form of a paycheck.
Yeah.
And then in the long term, that's going to pay off much more. And, that's kind of we could even segue into, like, that is one of the issues people have with being entrepreneurs is, all the stuff you're doing when you become an entrepreneur, like nobody's writing you a check for doing all what you're doing. Like it doesn't come for a while. And for me, like it was many, many months of like I was selling stuff around the house to make the car payment. Like I had a lot of credit card bill was piling up. I had, and nobody was giving me a check for the time I was spending. That is an entrepreneur. Like you have to be willing to do that. And there's a lot of people that are not willing to do that because they've been trained to trade time for money, because and I love that you have a university on financial independence, because that is one of my beefs with the education system is it basically trains people to become sheep and trade their time.
Right. Yeah, it is so odd because I remember one time I was doing a W-2 job and my boss was like, hey, if you work hard enough, you get promotion. I'm like, what? That's like a $30,000, $40,000. But I just closed a deal like last week and I got like 200K. Like what? Like, why would I spend time over doing this? Right. Yep. And that's also when it's like that should probably be a transition period. But that's really interesting. So, but I'm also guessing like you have a business that you're working in kind of like the stage. I know that you mentioned about not system process person, but I think there is some sort of system process over there I want to kind of unpack for our listener. Is like you probably have the stream of income coming in, and then you have figured out some sort of system and process with your partners so that it's actually generating, like, not that necessarily when you sleep it would generate your leads, but to some extent it would. So then you start having that going and okay, I have the security over this income stream. And then you started the second one. Is that like how the process that you start the second income stream, and then once that kind of going to a certain level where you want it, then you start a third one, then you start a fourth one? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to have a little bit of dependence on like multiple streams, and then as you invest in the stream and the stream grows and starts to flow, now you can take those proceeds from that stream and start another stream. So like, I think what you're alluding to is feed the stream until the stream is flowing to where you can you've made that investment into the stream and now you can go and invest in another stream. I look at the apartment buildings that we're buying as streams, and I buy a 49 unit. That's a stream that I've added now. It produces, X amount of cash flow for the investors. And then everything above and beyond that, I get into the, my passive income bucket. I get that thing stabilized. I invest all my time to get it repositioned, get the asset stabilized. I have all the meetings with the property managers, get it leased up, fix it up, everything like that. And now that stream is flowing pretty nicely. I'm going to take any of those proceeds and go invest in another stream. In 18 months when I refi and I get loan proceeds from the refi, I'm going to take those proceeds. I'm not putting them into a bank. I don't want money in the bank. I'm going and I'm getting another stream. And now you do that. You just put your head down and you work, and you just do that for a long enough period of time, and you pick your head up, and 3 years later I got 8 streams of income. Yeah. And then you just, you just multiply, you just keep multiplying and your money just keeps working for you. And then boom, you're there. I mean, it sounds, it's simple. we talk about how it is difficult. It is hard. It is hard work. It's difficult. Like there are struggles, there's trials, there's tribulations, but at the end of the day, it's simple.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not a complex equation achieving financial freedom. It's pretty simple how to do it. Just a lot of people aren't going to persevere through all the work that it takes to
Right.
get
Yeah, it's actually doing the work that
this
really
hard.
counts. Yeah, that's the part. That's really interesting. I want to kind of unpack a little bit more. At what point do you have kind of like this gauge on at what point when you're switching, not switching, but when you decided, okay, we're good now to start a second stream of income or third stream or the fourth stream? Is there any gauge to that? Like if
Very
people were
good.
like, we have one stream of income, it's working well, then they're like, okay, we're starting a second business. Like for me, starting a second business doing education. And like, what is your kind of gauge, or like if you have some sort of metric to say, okay, we're good to start a second stream now because our first stream is humming along. Like, what does that humming along mean?
Yeah. Oh, it's a great question. I would say that for me, there is no gauge.
Yeah.
It's a gut feeling that you only know if you become an entrepreneur. It's a gut feeling that you get from taking action.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's, to really diagnose your question to a very granular level, I think that's an issue that a lot of people have, is they're sort of waiting for this, like this sign, or this, I don't know what people are waiting for, but a lot of them are just waiting for like it to be the right time. Like there's some fairy is going to fly in and say, it's time, you're ready. That stream
Yeah.
is good. Like, go ahead and go for it. Go ahead and build the next one and start your side hustle because now is the right time.
Yeah.
I got news for everybody. There's no fairy that's going to come down and tell you it's the right time. Like
Yeah.
you ultimately, like you just got to do it and figure it out. Like I talk about when I first told my story, it was like commit first and figure the
Yeah.
rest out later. And
Mhm.
then once you have done that a couple of times, now you have this sort of this instinct inside you, and you get this gut feeling of like, okay, I'm ready to start another one because you've done it a couple of
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
And it's the hardest is the first one. It's
Yeah.
going from one stream of income or a W-2 job and getting into a side hustle or a second stream that can actually produce and replace your income. That is the hardest leap to make, because exactly what you just said, a lot of people are waiting for a sign.
Right.
There is no
It's
sign.
like the aha moment, which kind of never came, right? For some people, it never came because it becomes an excuse. I love that.
And
Um,
yeah, and a
yeah.
lot of people are waiting for that aha, and they think they're going to get it at a conference, or they think that, and you see these seminar junkies that are at every, like year after year, you see them going to the same events
Mhm.
because they're just soaking up information, like waiting for that
Yeah.
aha. And they ways from they go back and they just get back into their routines. And
Yeah.
they're let
Yeah.
this be your aha right now. If you're on the fence, freaking go for it, because
Do
take
something.
control of your life. Do something, because the clock's ticking.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
running out of time.
Yeah. And the other thing I want to ask, you touched on it before, which I thought it was really great wisdom as well, is when do you know when to fold? Like when you decide, hey, this is not working, like when do you know when to fold? Because for a lot of people, it just keep on going, right? They're losing a lot of money. Maybe it's when he runs out of the money. Hopefully that's not the case when they decided to fold.
Yeah,
Yeah. Can you share some of that?
that's a great question. And for me, I talked about, you never want to fold or throw in the towel on the big goal. It's sometimes the little ones, like the little businesses, that you may have to fold on. And that's what we're talking about. For
Mm-hmm.
me, like I do 90-day runways. Like if I cannot get the business profitable and in the green in 90 days, it's probably not the right stream for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
that's me personally. Like if I'm trying something and I'm doing something and I haven't seen profit and I'm not into the green in 90 days and I'm like dedicated hard work and focusing on building that,
Yeah.
then I let it go. I
That's
let it
awesome.
go.
That's
In the
that's a good
beginning, I
rule.
started a lot of little things, and I would give myself, 3-month budget. Here's the budget for it. And if it wasn't working with a lot of my effort, then it's probably a good time to fold and try something different. And that's
Yeah.
okay. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, that's awesome. Because I think that that's important too, which obviously, again, everybody has different gauges. You have different
Mhm.
funds and then what you feel comfortable. And sometimes you have to look at a business a different way. Like a coaching business, and maybe in the beginning, it looks like it's sucking your time or sucking your money for marketing, etc. But if the long-term goal is to kind of feed an apartment, then maybe you should analyze a little bit different
Yeah.
in
Great point.
terms of the value that you get from the investors is, because they're going to be in your multiple stuff. So
That's a
you should look
great,
at that.
great point. And I'm doing that, I'm doing that right now is like, I don't make a ton of money from the coaching, like the
Hmm.
actual one-on-one private coaching that I'm doing. I
Yeah.
make more when I make more spending my time in the apartment space, but that
Hmm.
one-on-one coaching has ancillary benefits. Like
Yeah.
those people are now I have multifamily clients. Like I have private coaching clients that I teach how to get into the multifamily space.
Hmm.
And guess who they're going to bring the deal to get the deal done when they do find a
Right.
deal with the contractor.
Yeah.
So selfishly there's some ancillary benefits to that coaching. So the actual
Hmm.
coaching and is a little bit of a loss leader because it's feeding some of the other streams as well. And
That's awesome.
one thing about, just to follow up on my 90-day rule, like that may not be the rule for you because you may need a 6-month runway if you have a W-2 job, and you may not be able to dedicate as much time to making it produce in 90 days. So
Hmm.
you have to figure out what's best for you. But ultimately it is probably wise to set a deadline and basically create a small business plan. I mean, it doesn't need to be a 10-page business plan, but create something and give yourself some deadlines and try and hit those numbers.
Yeah, and then kind of the financial modeling. I know, Chad, again, you said you don't have a system. I'm sure you have a system because, just by setting up the budget, be able to kind of review them and then projecting out what your numbers should be within like
Yeah.
3 months out or 6 months out. That itself is a system by itself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My
So
systems are on my whiteboard over here. Like I just have a whiteboard that I write stuff down on
that's
when it comes to
amazing.
me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then, so tell us a little bit about finding deals, because apparently that's kind of your superpower, which is why you lead by deal first. And then oftentimes this is the most difficult thing at current point of time. Finding
Mm-hmm.
a deal seems to be very difficult for people.
Mm-hmm.
So what are some tips if you have to leave our viewer who wants to find a deal, multifamily deals and etc., that you would suggest them do? Let's say if they're in the beginning or they're getting into a new market. How did you do it? And then where did you get these deals most time?
Sure. And are we talking, just to clarify, because the answer is majorly different when it
Apartments.
comes to wholesale, just apartments.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Apartments. Yeah.
Because it's a different space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
My advice would be completely different if it was wholesale stuff. So, finding deals in the multifamily space can be tricky because they get stuck in this little space. There's a little space that people, and that space is, I can't find the deals because the brokers have the deals, and I can't talk to the brokers because they won't take me seriously because I don't have the deals, but the brokers have the deals. So how am I supposed to get the deals if the brokers have the deals, but if I don't have a deal, I can't talk to the broker with the deal?
Uh,
And they get caught in that little space. And I know that was a lot, but I hear that a lot of people stuck in that little window. And ultimately, like, I am a big believer in going direct to seller. So that is how I got my first deal. It's how I got my second deal. My
mhm,
third deal came from a broker relationship. My fourth deal came from a broker relationship. But I got the first two direct to seller because it
mhm,
builds that credibility. So when you get a deal direct to seller, now you can go and talk to a broker and say, hey, I just bought 14 units. I'm looking to buy the next one. And you can get taken a little bit more seriously.
mhm,
My advice is, number one, you got to educate yourself. Okay. If you don't understand the lingo and you
mhm,
don't understand the right questions to ask, you are going to get blacklisted pretty quick by brokers and sellers. So you need to educate yourself, but
mhm,
don't get lost in education. You also need to take action.
mhm,
Second step is action. You need to start looking at deals in your market, whatever market you select. Start underwriting deals that are like, go to Cushman and Wakefield, go to Marcus and Millichap, sign up for their list to get their deals, go to LoopNet and just start underwriting deals. Like,
mhm,
you're not going to find a home run on LoopNet, but you can cut your teeth on the underwriting and start reading the narrative of these deals. Like, understand the story,
mhm,
understand, hey, why is this not a good deal? Like, oh, okay, because the payroll costs are $200,000 a year. So that's what kills this deal for me. And you start reading the narrative of these deals, you get a little more acclimated to the language, the lingo, and ultimately now you can reach out to direct to sellers. I pull lists and I'll cold call sellers all day long. Like I love that. And that's where I came
Yeah.
from. So sorry about that.
Nice.
So ultimately you can go direct to
That,
seller.
that might
And
be a seller.
that's
Yeah.
actually, that's my wife, but
Oh.
yeah. So
That's
yes,
awesome.
I gotta close that deal every day. I'm closing her. And so that's where I would say is I was going direct to seller while simultaneously building broker relationships, and I was working those two funnels simultaneously.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you got to look at a lot of deals before you get one. I think people get frustrated because they're like, "Oh, I've underwritten 5 or 6 deals and I haven't gotten a contract yet." Man,
Yeah.
you're not even close. Like you got
Yeah.
to look at like 60, 70 deals before you're even talking about submitting some LOIs. Like, and that I think there's a misconception of the activity level that you need in this space. And it is 60 to 70 deals I underwrite before I put one under contract. And that's a real number. So start with increasing your deal flow.
Yeah.
Start with like, I need to figure out how to increase my deal flow. There's some free ways to go on those websites. I go direct. I liked direct to seller is how I started. Plenty of services to pull list. I use a service called Reonomy. I'll just, tell your listeners, let them behind the curtain. I use Reonomy, a little bit
Yeah.
more expensive software, but they have great owner data. You can hit those owners with, text blasts, voicemail drops, direct mail campaigns. And you have to do it on a cadence. Like you're not going to just pull a list of 150 people and have 6 owners that reach out to you and say, "Hey, thanks for your interest in my building. I'd love
Right.
to talk to you." Like that ain't how it
Right.
works.
Yeah.
So it takes a cadence, and then I'm simultaneously, especially once you get that first one down, now you're building those broker relationships, and then you get that stream of deal flow coming in, and that's where I would start. Is the education, then the action, and it's a lot of action. Like remember, it's all about a funnel. It's all about a
Right.
pipeline. You got to underwrite a lot of deals, and then you double down on your deal flow channels, and ultimately, you get,
Closing the deal.
eventually it'll tip. Like, if you start
Right.
submitting LOIs, like you're going to get a deal eventually.
Yeah. And also when you're practicing them, you're gonna see more gold out of these deals because now you're more familiar with these deals, and maybe there's a different structure that you can put in place, which will
Yeah.
make the deal work. Where the people who is submitting 5 or 6, underwriting 5 or 6 only and try to get a deal, they don't kind of see these gold nuggets in there
Yeah.
potentially.
And that's a great point. It might be one that we can sort of tie this up in is like, I've acquired 149 units in less than 12 months, and people think like, "Oh man, that's a ton of like you got real lucky in that year. Like that's 1 year of work and you 149 work, 3 work,
Yeah.
because you got to count the 2 years of walking properties, underwriting deals, talking to sellers, talking to brokers. You have to count all that time. So that's actually 3
Yeah.
years that it took me to get 149 units, not one.
Right.
So you got to take a step back and look at the macro of like, before I closed my first 14 unit in November, like there was a lot. I put 3 deals under contract that fell through, 3 multifamily properties under contract that didn't go through. Like I did a lot of underwriting and a lot of property walkthroughs that never came to fruition before we did that first deal. So,
Yeah.
got to keep your eye on the big picture. This is a long game we're playing,
Yeah.
especially apartment space. Wholesale is like, 30 days, you get a check. It's a short game, but this multifamily, this is a long game, and you need to keep your eye on the prize.
Yeah.
Play the long
That's
game.
That's awesome. Now, Chad, how does people get in contact with you? I mean, like it sounds like there's a lot of knowledge you can teach people, and I can kind of see your education program is in a way that, hey, we're going to teach you how to make money from wholesaling because that's maybe a little easier, right? And then to build up some active income streams, and then we're going to teach you about how do you actually then move these active income stream into multifamily investing, turn this into more passive. So there's a lot of information that you can pack over there. Like how does people get in touch with you?
Yeah. Great question. You can't get in touch with me. I'm a ghost. I don't want to be in. I'm just kidding. I give a lot of free content on my Facebook. I'm Chad King on Facebook, ChadKing. And then I'm Mr. Chad King on Instagram. And that's another channel that I pour a lot of content into. You know, if you go to my Instagram or you go to my Facebook, you'll see links to some of my platforms that I sell packages and coaching stuff. And, you know, ultimately, like, I love to help when I can. So don't be afraid to DM me. Like, I love to help if I can in any way. I'm all about, you know, delivering value. I believe that it comes back in the long run. So feel free to reach out. And I'm
That's awesome.
I'm on those social channels. So Facebook and Instagram are kind of where I live.
Awesome. And then lastly, I have some questions that's maybe a little bit more personal. I think just like anything, when you do something, you need a team. But also on the personal level, it sounds like you have a great wife that is supporting you on the journey that you're on. But oftentimes when I'm working with a woman that wants to kind of get into it, you know, the relationships sometimes get into the way. So like, what are some stuff that you are doing and you and your wife are doing to potentially making sure that you guys are both on the same page and then working as a team? This doesn't necessarily mean that she needs to work in your business, but kind of bringing her on board. And what are some stuff that you do or you do together to kind of bring her on board?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm jotting down some notes because my wife will watch this, so she wants to make sure this answer is on point. No, I mean, in all honesty, a great partner is like rocket fuel. It really is. And when you have a partner that's not on the same page, it's like being in a rowboat and you guys are paddling in different directions. What happens when you do that in a rowboat is you just go in circles.
Right.
And I know personally, I have friends that have partners that are not on the same page, and it hinders them in their business, in my opinion, from what they could potentially achieve. And and this is not to say that you need a spouse to create success. You don't. But if you do have a spouse, it would behoove you to, number one, share the vision. So she needs to know, because she's you know, she didn't get this real estate bug before I did. I got the real estate bug, and I have to share the vision. So what is this? Why are we doing this? To achieve financial freedom so we can do whatever we want, whenever we want, with whoever we want, for however long we want, and we can live life on our own terms and create our own destiny and write our own tickets. Like, that is why we're doing it. Share the vision. And then over communicate. For us, for me and my wife, like, we sit down every week, we look at our personal financial statement, we look at our asset column, we look at our liability column, we talk about how we're going to feed our asset column and starve our liability column. Like, we talk about any purchase we're making, like, hey, is this an asset or is this a liability? And we over communicate those things. We treat our household like a business. We have, you know, we use the EOS model, entrepreneur operating system. Do you use that? So my wife and I have our own L10 meeting, and it's the King household L10. Like, we want to have our stuff together. So we sit down on Sunday afternoons and we have our L10 meeting. What are our, you know, our 90 bucks for our household? What do we need to get done? What's our 1-year goal target? What's our 3-year vision? And we set those things up. And I think I think there are some couples that are just not, they're not communicating that. And they're not sharing the vision, because now it's not my vision to achieve financial freedom and have 1,000 apartment units and do all this thing. It's our vision. And when it's our vision, you can team up like the way my wife and I are teamed up, where she has a W-2 job right now strategically to get us, you know, so that we have health insurance, steady flows of a steady flow of income. And it's another stream. We have insurance. We have our first baby on the way, who's, you know, coming in.
Congrats.
Thank you. So but we've talked about the plan, you know, and she helps me in the business now, but right now it's more important for her to have that stability for us. And that all comes from communication and sharing in the vision. So I get a little excited when I talk about my wife, because I love her a lot. But you know,
that's amazing.
It's sharing the vision and communicating are probably, if I could give 2 tips for working with your spouse, that's it. Because she's also my COO in my business, in our life, and she kind of runs the ship, and I'm just out there selling and closing deals, and she kind of tells me what to do.
That's awesome. And then yet you telling me that you're not systematic.
I probably meant that I'm not like techie. Like I meant like I'm not a back end sort of designing systems guy, but
Yeah,
um,
yeah. I
yeah,
think a lot of it is people. So I think you're actually a system expert.
mm,
Yeah,
I
definitely.
appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, great, awesome, chat. Thank you so much for joining us. And I really had a great time chatting with you.
I did too.
Um, yeah, and we definitely would love to kind of check you out at your website, www.
Yeah, you can check out I'm trying to tell you which website to go to. Go to Titan Capital Group LLC.com. That's the apartment. It's my multifamily apartment website.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
TitanCapital.com.
Titan Capital Group. And it's in my, if you go to Mr. Chad King or Chad King, it's on my Facebook page and Instagram. And Titan Capital Group
Gotcha.
is my apartment.
I can remember the Mr. Chat King on the Instagram.
Okay.
So yeah, that's great name. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. That wraps up our other episode of My FI Story, and really great to have Chad with us today. And we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Had a blast. Love what you're doing. Keep
Yeah,
going.
thank you. Thank you.